Hi, I'm Bill Patton with USA Tennis Coach, and I'm back again with David Smith, high school tennis coach par excellence, and then also, a highly regarded tennis professional, right? So he's the real deal. And David and I are going to talk a lot about training parameters, the advanced foundation. I'm messing up your stuff. I'm gonna have to let you introduce your stuff. But we're gonna get into periodized training and what are some of the issues that come up with high school coaches. So hi David, how are you?
Hi Bill, I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad you're got through the traffic and you're here now, so well done.
Yes, thank you very much. So anyway, so I wanted to lead with a story because I'm very much a periodized training schedule guy, and pure periodized training isn't really possible in a 10 to 12 week high school tennis season. So I think part of the value of periodized training is it is so valuable that even if you don't do it exactly right, there's a lot to gain from it. So I don't do it exactly right. Anyway, so I'm looking at my schedule, and all of a sudden one day, it's a Friday and it's a perfect day. It's already been planned out. Killer workout, right? We're gonna have an amazing fitness, routine today, and I'm gonna send them home exhausted, and then they're gonna come back Monday, rested, and everything's gonna be great. So, but I'm looking at my team, and I got 20 plus kids out there. And I'm thinking, something's not right. Something's not right. I can tell if I go to this group right now and say, killer workout, right? They're not gonna say, yay. Right? So
Right.
I get my three captains together, and I get the three captains, and Aaron is my number one captain, and he's very much he's all in on everything coach ever says. He's just always gonna be, yeah, coach, right? And
Right.
then I've got Daniel, right? And Daniel will pretty much follow Aaron's lead. Daniel's not gonna rock the boat. Okay, he's not a boat rocker. And then Vincent is one of the kids who I can tell is kind of on the edge. He's kind of tired. He's the one that's a little edgy and gives me a little pushback. All right, so I get the kids together and I go, all right, hey, gentlemen, captains, this is a time I really need your leadership. So schedule says tough workout today. What do you think? We're going to vote on this, right? So we have a little discussion. Everybody pretty much says everything I think they're going to say, right? Aaron's gung-ho. Daniel's, yeah, whatever, right? Vincent's like, hey, coach, you know what? I'm really tired. And I know there are about 3 or 4 other guys I've been talking to. They're just exhausted, right? So I'm like, okay, let's vote, right? So it comes out 2-1. 2-1 vote for the tough workout. So what do you think I did? I'm going to just leave that there. Rhetorical question. What do you think I did, right? So I said, okay, well, we're going to take it easy today. And Daniel and Aaron were shocked because they thought it's the majority rules thing, right?
Right.
And so I said, no. Here, this is something you have to learn about leadership right now, you leaders, is if you have the possibility of possibly sending people over a cliff you later you're going to have to rescue, don't do it. I mean, so while I get it, you guys are really gung-ho, or you're very, easygoing, go with the flow, you have to pay attention to people who are on the edge. Because if we lose them, they're not coming back. They won't be playing for us. All right, so I wanted to frame the conversation with that story, because now we're going to get into kind of like, that's the stuff that's outside the lines. Now we're going to draw the lines.
Sure.
So, all right, so now when it comes to periodized training, how do you handle that? How do you set up your schedule to put training in place?
Well, we're a little different. While I'm not an authoritarian type coach, I have my program very well defined in my mind of what I need to get out of my team on any given day. So I don't prerequisite a Friday perhaps as a day I'm going to do this, this, and this every Friday or anything like that. Number two, I never will include my players in the decision that I recognize is something I know from 45 years of teaching and coaching that I would never put in the hands of say my players, just because I want them to feel important. I want them to feel they're part of the program, but I can do it in other ways. So that sort of, I don't run into that problem because I don't necessarily, don't read that the wrong way, because I too want to get a read of my players and not push them over the edge. I don't want to have them regretting or resenting a practice because we worked on something that they didn't see a value in. One of my biggest things that every day we have practice, when I teach a stroke, a grip, a footwork pattern, a strategy, a drill, whatever we're doing, I always teach my players why they're doing it, why they're learning it, rather than just do it. So I think there's a buy-in with my students because I really take pride in the fact that so many of my students become teaching pros or go on to teach tennis because they understand why they're learning it when they're learning it, so they can translate it later if they ever do become a teaching pro. But the value I see at the moment with my players during the season is the fact that they have a buy-in because I've told them why they're working on a particular drill or exercise or fitness program, whatever. I love that. And I love the fact that I cannot even think of a time where I actually had players, kind of rebel or fight me on something. And maybe that's why, because I really find pleasure in making sure they understand why we're working a particular drill that day. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So now, all right. So I think that's interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that that's your approach. No, really. I mean, I kind of have a preconceived notion about what you're about, and you just blew it up. So thank you for that. Yeah, because now, see, for me, and what I need to accomplish with my team, I like to get out, the schedule for the year.
Sure.
Matches on these days. We have practices on these days. I need to teach them serves and returns. I need to teach them, doubles and singles, where to stand, what's the strategy. I need to teach them forehands and backhands. If everything's going well, we'll get more into spins. I know you like to go spin first. I'm actually going to experiment with that in the next season I do. I think it's a great idea. But, I pretty much lay out every day of practice ahead of time. Right. And so this is for me because I want to make sure I get all my major objectives accomplished. So, but then I'm flexible. So, it rained on the day I wanted to do serves and returns. Right. So then as I'm going, I have to jettison some things. I have the major objectives. I have the minor objectives. If things start getting tight because of weather or other disruptions, then I jettison all the extras and
all the pre-planned. Yeah.
Well, all the extra. I mean, if everything went, I always plan as though everything's going to go perfectly.
Sure.
Right. And then that's when leadership is needed, is when things don't go perfectly. Right. And I never show the kids the plan, because if I showed it to them, then they would be looking over my shoulder going, "Hey coach, we were supposed to do this on this day." And why, right? And I'm like, give me a break. You haven't planned this out. So don't give me such a hard time. This is why I don't show you the plan ahead of time. And it's really also, I think it's funny how almost every team has a kid on it that wants to know the plan ahead of time.
Sure.
And I'm like, no, just go with the flow. This is going to make you crazy, but just deal with it.
Right.
So, because if I tell you what it is, you're going to second guess me, and then I don't have any flexibility to change on the fly.
Yep. I mean, I think there's a degree of planning. I know in my mind, first of all, I've coached 38 seasons of high school tennis. So there's a degree that I've already planned stuff out from years and years and years of knowing what I'm going to do without having to really be concrete in my plan, because I already know in my head what I'm going to do.
That's a great point. I can relate to that as a teacher. When you already know the text, it sort of flows out. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
And that was also my, when I ran, my clubs, and I was a head pro and a tennis director and an academy owner. I kid you not. I mean, when I first started as the head pro at it was a 5-star resort, one of the top 5 in the country. When I first came on, they had no real head pro there. It was a name pros program, and I was the head pro for the local contingent of tennis players, and it was a big facility. And my drop-in programs, I started every 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and they were hour-and-a-half programs, and I'd get 2 people, then 3, then 5, then 10. I got upwards of 75 people in a drop-in clinic on 2 sports. Now, I learned through that process of dealing. I never canceled a clinic, even if only one person showed up, which when I moved on to start my own academy, this club I'm talking about actually went under, because the pros would cancel a clinic if 2 or less people or 3 or less people showed up. They'd cancel the clinic. Well, nobody showed up because they didn't want to get there and have it canceled. I never, ever canceled the clinic. But that's a whole nother concept. But the idea was that in an hour and a half, I never knew how many people were going to be there. I didn't know what levels of players are going to be there. I didn't know what ages of people, especially on my Saturday program where I'd have 8-year-olds to 85-year-olds. I'd have 2.5 to 5.0s. So one of the things that I learned was how to maximize the learning. In fact, when I had 75 people show up to a clinic one day, I actually lowered the price from $10 to $5 because I didn't think I should make $750 for an hour and a half. So I dropped.
Yeah, no, that's a great. I've done that too. I think that's great when you have a sliding scale of price. Now, I think we want to kind of come back from that, because it sounds like the lessons learned from being, a successful club pro were the things that you applied into your high school coaching. Now, I want to change let's transition into something differently. All right. So, one of the best things I'd ever heard was from Sherry Plunkett, who I think was the gal who established women's college tennis. So I think she was the first women's college tennis coach, like at San Diego State or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so her whole thing was every practice has to have at least 4 things, right? You have to have some stroke work, strategy time, a mental game time, and fitness. And there's more that goes into that. I mean, we could get into more categories, but so as you go through a season, how do you transition from week to week with those things?
Well, and to step back, before I was in the head club pro type of work, I was first and foremost a tennis coach at a high school. And so one of the things I actually talk about is every top teaching pro ought to coach 2, 3, 4 years of high school tennis if they want to really learn how to be a good head pro somewhere. But I started as a tennis coach in high school after I got done with my college. Well, actually in the middle of my college career, I took a year and coached and whatnot, and then went back and played 2 more years of Division I college. Well, to answer your question, when you have a diverse group, you have to create a mechanism that gives all the players what they need. And you can do that many different ways. As you know, I'm writing my own new book called High School Tennis Mastery, and I'm putting into this book that very concept. It's a very complex way to look at it, but you know, so many coaches don't know how, they don't think they can differentiate within a small facility of courts and limited resources, that they can still create the needs for different levels of players. Even my advanced players do drop feed, fast hand drills, movement drills, everything. But my beginners can also do drop feed drills. And so with 9 teaching carts, we create the vehicle so that the beginners are hitting the right stroke. And I have the ability, because I'm the only coach, I do have one assistant that's part-time, but for the most part, it's just me with over 40 kids, usually every year, 40 to 50 kids. So I needed to create a vehicle that I could make sure the beginner was learning the advanced stroke patterns that I want them to master, which ironically, so many coaches don't understand that you can train, even in that short 9-10 week season, you can train players to become very prolific tennis players. If you don't think you can do it, you probably won't. I've done it year after year, and there's no magic formula. I don't have any more skills than you or Joe down the street here, but I know it can be done. And so I also convey that to my players, saying, you will become an advanced player before this season is over. They will become a top-ranked player a year or two down the road. They will become a state champion if they want to, and I give them the mechanisms to understand what it takes to do that. So they not only have to believe it, but then you have to be able to give them the tools to accomplish the strokes, the footwork, the strategy, the mental toughness, the conditioning, all the things that make a player a champion. So
Got it. Okay.
I mean, and to answer your question, there's a lot to how you need to design your program so that you can address the needs of all those players. And my program changes day to day. I don't do the same exact thing every day, as I know you don't either.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna do this bit, and then I'm gonna turn off the Facebook Live. So if you're watching Facebook Live, you can catch the rest of it on YouTube later. But now, with fitness, I do most of my fitness in the early part of the season, because I want to get the kids in the best possible shape that I can.
Yep.
And then that starts to kind of peter out as we start getting into our preseason. But I get a lot of second guessing with parents and players about, why are we conditioning so hard while we're also playing tournaments or preseason matches, and it's pretty consistent. Hey, how come we had this hard workout yesterday? We have a match tomorrow, right? Or we have a match today, right? Why did we do all that yesterday? And I'm like, because I'm not training you for the preseason, I'm training you for the postseason.
Yep, when it matters.
Well, this is one of the mistakes I think a lot of high school coaches make, is that they compromise the fitness aspect because they're too short-term results focused. I want my kids peaking at the end. And then early on, I do more stroke work, but after a certain period of time, then I don't want, your game is your game, right? So, and then from there, we might make some little minor adjustments. Like this year, I tried really hard to get my girls to use something resembling world-class technique on a serve, but we ended up with that. So we just ran with it. I mean, okay, now make that where you can make it. And then a funny thing happened. At the end of the season, a couple of girls actually started following all the way through on their serve, because they'd seen some other girls doing it. So now, I think that goes through a transition. But then one thing that happens is I start with very few point play situations early on, and then I start to do more and more as we go through the season. And then when we're in the so-called competitive phase, then it's pretty much all playing doubles, playing singles, playing pressure sets, playing sets that have special rules to get certain things going. So there's this transition from one thing to the next. And I like to announce it to the kids. Hey, we're leaving the preparation phase. We've entered the pre-competitive phase now. Here's what it's going to look like for the next couple of weeks. Now we're in the competitive phase. So I'm not going to teach you a lot of new stuff because now it's your time to shine. So your game is your game. We're going to play. You're going to play confidently with what you know. Don't worry. Don't start thinking that, oh, coach, you have to work with my backhand. No, your backhand's fine. You know?
Yep.
So you want to go a little deeper into that?
Yeah, I think there's several different philosophies that work. Obviously, you're finding the one that works for you. My big difference is we do condition early on, but we don't condition to the degree we will 1 week, 2 weeks, and 3 weeks prior to region and state, because I want them to truly peak at that point in a conditioning phase. I want them to be ready to be conditioned through the conditioning we do in the early part, which is pretty significant, but it's more significant as we get ready the week, 2 weeks before region and the 1 week before state. I'm building up to that. So there's a slight difference there because I build up my conditioning for that process because, again, I get so many, you got to remember, I get 40 to 50 kids on a team. The strokes, I mean, I don't care how well conditioned you are. If you can get to a ball, but your swing changes every time you get to a ball, what's the point? I mean, if you can't create a repeatable, reliable swing path that generates the right kind of spin on command and direct that ball with intention, you can be the greatest athlete in the world, but you're not going to win too many matches. I mean, you'll be able to run down balls, obviously, but the point at the high school level that leads to the college level and beyond is really the strokes. I mean, there's no question. I mean, I've worked with world-class players all the way to beginners throughout my high school teaching, my every degree of everywhere I've taught. And it is rare that a player of mine has ever lost a match because they weren't conditioned enough. Very, very seldom. I mean, I've got probably 3 of the top singles players in the state. And yes, they can rally and run down balls all day long. And that's part of our conditioning. But they also have magnificent strokes that are going to allow them to move their opponent and get them in a vulnerable position. 90% of the points won are not because we are in great shape. 90% of the points won are because we can place the ball on command with pace, with spin, with angles, with directional control, and the strategic part of, say, the $10,000 shot sequence or whatever you want to call it, your inside in, inside out, single strategy or double strategy, understanding how to volley well. We can put balls away. We have one of the things that separates every single year I've coached, I've had a state champion doubles team, if not 2. And one of the reasons is we focus on strategic net play. We have a kind of an ongoing joke that if you poach and you drill that ball through the net man and you hit them in the feet, legs, whatever, we give them the ice cream. You know, I never do, but the joke is that that's the ideal spot to hit the ball. If you try to miss your opponent, you run the risk of hitting it back to the back person who's going to lob you. You run the risk of hitting it wide if you're trying to miss them wide. If it's a high shot, it's not a good percentage shot to hit a sharp angle volley the other way. It's the best shot. So we've actually had, it's very apparent my girls know how to play doubles. And
yeah,
so
I want to get in there because I got a couple of things too on that one. So,
okay.
I mean, there have been times that we're playing a team that has a really bad attitude. And, and that's when I free up my teams to really go after these guys. So I tell them, don't hit them with the ball. Hit the ball really close to them. So
Yeah.
So if it hits their shirt, it actually hasn't hit them.
But it's close.
It's very close. It's very close. So,
well, I mean, it's so funny to watch players, especially, I've coached in 3 states, and I'll watch players get the easiest volley in the world, and instead of going to the net girl or net boy, if you're doing boys or girls, they hit it back to the back person. It's like you had a ball above the net, you're on top of the net, you put that ball away. And instead they hit it back to the back person. And we see it thousands upon thousands of times. And I always point that out to my kids. Like, where did that person put that ball that was not correct? They're like, she didn't go through the net, girl. I'm like, you got it.
Right. No, that's awesome. And then I had a kid who came up with something cool. He said, "Hey, coach, can we give them tattoos?" I'm like, what are you talking about, Calvin?" And then Calvin says, "See, we'll take the logo and we'll emblazon it on them, right? So we give them a free Wilson tattoo for you."
Yeah, so the tattoo would be reverse letters, but
well, we're not too concerned about how it looks later.
Yeah, no, I'm joking.
It's the effect. No, I'm with you. I'm joking along too. We're fine.
I love it.
All right. But things transition. You look at your team and you kind of look at what's the next logical thing, right? So, was there a time that I guess first tell us about a time when you got it dialed in exactly perfect, like, okay, my team needs this, and then all of a sudden, boom, they did exactly the right thing. And then maybe a time when you thought you had the right thing, but it turned out not to be.
I'll tell you a funny story. We do a poaching drill with a secondary volley after the poach, because a lot of times the poach gets reflected back and doesn't have a lot of pace and it's low. And so many players, when they poach, they try to hit that second volley if they get one back to try to crush it again, instead of knowing the wherewithal of hitting a sharp angle volley winner. And we teach, obviously, our first volley we teach is a sharp angle volley type of shot, type of volley, rather than the deep volley. We want the players to learn to reflect the ball, use the pace of the shot, et cetera, et cetera. Well, several years ago, decades ago, when I was coaching in California, my number one doubles team was playing in the finals of our league tournament. And we were down 1-5 in the second set. We'd lost, I think, this first set 6-4. And I had a real tall Vietnamese boy who we trained this sharp angle volley winner. And he went over and drilled the volley. And then the ball came back and he hit this sharp angle, picture perfect, you could see the wind come out of the sails. Long story short, from 1-5, they came back and won the set, won the match. I think they ended up winning 6-1 in the third. That one shot was a momentum changer, because it reflected what we teach. And you could see in my players, he almost wanted to turn to me. I could tell. He said, you could see he was going to say, "Coach, just see my angle volley."
Right.
And so that light bulb of expertise, the ability to, my dogs are barking.
That's okay.
The ability to.
They sound great.
Reflect that ball and do the right thing. It triggered them to go, wow, everything we've worked on this season came to fruition right on that shot, and it changed the complexion of that entire match. And we've had, as I mentioned on Facebook, I've had at least 15, if not 20 matches in my girls' teams over the last 4 years where we were down match point and we came back and won. We did it 4 times this season alone.
Wow.
Where we were down match point and we came back, or we were down very significant. State championships, my number 3 singles player loses the first set 6-0 in the semis, comes back and wins 6-0, 6-2. Momentum shifts. And one of the things I never panic, and I never tell my players to panic. I always believe they will come back and win. It doesn't always happen, but when you've won 50 consecutive matches on varsity and JV over 4 years, it happens more times than not. So, but that's one of the stories as far as just how, and back to the original concept of how do I design my practice on a day-to-day basis? Because every day is different, and every day I have a result that I may not have anticipated. We may have hit great overheads, or we missed overheads, or we didn't hit the volleys where we should, or whatever. So I have a fly by the seat of my pants kind of idea, that I recognize the patterns that my team needs now, or that we need to address now. And so I will design a drill right then and there. And I've got 50 drills, maybe more, that I've probably forgotten more drills than I know. And so I will design one or come up with one of my favorite drills or design a drill for that particular group that addresses that particular either strategy, shot, technique, or shot placement.
Yeah, that's great. And, you know, numerous times this year in my team full of beginners, pretty much, we had to respond to some things that we weren't doing well in matches. And, and I think that that's part of why it's really important for coaches to schedule their teams to play as many matches as possible, because otherwise you're just training in a vacuum. So, you know, I try to schedule my team for the maximum number of matches for a couple different reasons. One, because that's the laboratory. That's where they're taking their quizzes, right?
That's good
And
analogy.
and then the other thing is because then that's one less day of practice. And that makes those kids very happy not to have to practice, because, you know, essentially they don't have to listen to me as much when they're playing. So they really want to play. You as the coach are going to get a lot more data about what they need. So, I mean, one time we had, okay, it's Leah day because Leah needs to work on her forehand and she's a lefty. So it's backhand day for everybody else. So we're all working on backhands because Leah had she's our number 2 player, and she had a particularly bad day with her forehand. So we got to solve that thing. So we might as well just all work on that side of the ball all together. You know, and then we had return of serve day, right? And then we had one bounce doubles day because my players were all letting everything bounce, right? So instead of letting it bounce, we're not going to let it bounce. So, you know, I mean, so I think it's really important, to have a plan, because not everybody's David Smith. You don't have it. You can't just pull it out of your whatever, right? You know, if you're a newer coach, if you've been coaching for 5 years or less, having a scripted plan is a really important resource. But then also having the flexibility to observe what's happening with your team and make adjustments to your plan. And that's why you don't tell the kids the plan, because to them, changing a plan seems like vulnerability.
Yeah, and the preconceived notion of them knowing what you're doing can change the fact of the matter. And let me go back to what you just alluded to for, say, the newer coach. Yeah, I did not know, you know, anywhere near what I know now, and I had to. I'm a big proponent of a newer coach truly doing exactly what you've talked about, and that is having a general plan or a general idea. You can never be too organized, in my opinion. I honestly believe that the more organized you are, the more flexibility you end up with. If you are not organized, you're basically, they say tennis is a game of emergency. Well, coaching becomes a thing of emergencies because you don't have a plan A, plan B, plan C, or have that knowledge of what you're going to do. In fact, most coaches, when they have a good plan and they have a solid, it almost feels like you don't have enough time because you're getting so much done that you're like, oh my gosh, the practice is done at 6 o'clock. And yet it's the coach that's not well planned or organized that seems like, oh my gosh, I got another hour of practice. I don't know what I'm doing.
No, I've been there. I remember those days. And then the other thing that happens is you become subject to the whims of the kids. You know, they're like, hey, can we play a game? Can we play the stupidest game you've ever seen?
Yeah.
And it's hard to say no when you don't have a better plan. So,
well, a great example of that, I got to tell the story because it's so funny, because the coach before me is a good guy, really. You know, he was, as high school coaches go, he was very good. But he always let the kids play what they call big tennis, where we have 3 courts on one side of the fence and 3 courts on the other, and they divide the kids up and they rally the ball over the fence as if it was the net.
Oh.
And as the kids are like, I first came on as head coach, I'm like, we are not doing big tennis. It serves zero purpose. It's hit and giggle tennis. And of course, for 5 years before I came on board, they hadn't won a region title, hadn't won state. I come in for the last 4 years. We've won region all 4 years. We've never lost a match, and we've won state and been runner-ups. So I said to the kids, I said, you know, number one, we do make practice fun, but there's a type of fun that to me is ineffective and inefficient.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely correct. When the kids, can we do this because they remember how fun it was, say that maybe they did something at a club. And
right.
Don't get me wrong, I make my practices very fun. If you've seen some of the letters I've gotten from seniors graduating saying you made practice, they couldn't wait to come to practice. And so it's not that we're regimented and, you know, militaristic out there. We have a blast, but I recognize when things are not productive or going to be, and there's exceptions. I mean, there may be a day where, you know what, we're just going to go out and do something totally off the wall. And that's rare I ever need to do that. It's rare.
I'm glad you said that, because I got to give you my off the wall thing, right? So have you ever played tennis volleyball?
Oh, we do it all the time.
Okay.
Now that's a game I love.
Okay,
if
so I love tennis volleyball because, and so here are our rules for tennis volleyball, right? Only 3 people can touch the ball on your side, right?
Right.
The ball has to leave the last person's racket and go over. It can't bounce in between.
Right.
And the ball is live until it rolls.
Okay.
So,
and
that's where the insanity is, because as long as it has just a little bit of a bounce going, kids can, right?
Run it down.
If you hit it off the net, just like in volleyball, you can hit it again, right? So like the other day, we had a girl hit it 1, 2 in the net, right? And then she hit it over, and everybody's like, wait, you just not, yeah, it is legal, shh, right? So, but here's the funny thing. I mean, we start playing that really late in the season. When I can kind of tell practice has become kind of dull, they're not really looking forward to it. So then we start playing tennis volleyball. And I know what's going to happen next year. At the very beginning, they're going to ask to play tennis volleyball. And the answer is going to be no, right?
Yep.
And I probably will say, we will start playing tennis volleyball on October 14th, right?
Yep.
So we'll play these other games, but tennis volleyball, no. But it's really amazing how much fun they have with that game. And I think it sort of teaches some skills, but it's really more of a team chemistry thing.
Well, if you want to know how we do it, because we use volleyball tennis completely different, because it truly is a volley game. We do it only in the service box, head to head. So, So you have to serve underhand. There's 2 people, and this is a great game because you get 8 people per court. You're playing 2 people on the 2 service boxes in front of each other. So,
do you have a diagram of this?
I don't, but it's really simple. You spin for serve. You serve underhand. You hit the serve over. It cannot bounce.
Okay.
So
the ball never bounces.
Well, never, cannot bounce. So they hit it to themselves. I mean, they have to hit it to their partner. The partner hits it back to their partner, and then the partner hits it over just like yours. They have to keep it in the service box. They can reach over the net if they accidentally hit it over, but their partner can reach over and hit it back to their partner before it goes over, and that kind of thing. But it's all volleyball. And I mean, the rallies become so intense, and they learn how to anticipate. You know, not only it's a total outside the box, because they're learning to volley to each other before they hit it over the net, rather than tennis where you're always hitting it over the net. And the basic rules are this: you have to hit it 3 times. You cannot hit the ball down when you hit it over the net. You must hit a volley that is under the ball. So they can hit a drop volley, they can hit a lob, but they can't hit a smash.
Okay.
So they learn angle volleys. They learn to touch the ball and that kind of
question. Okay, so the team receiving the ball must hit it 3 times, or they can hit it 3 times?
They have to hit it 3. It has to go 3 times before it goes over. And then we do it because look at it this way: I've got 8 players per court, so I've got say 3 courts in a row. So I've got 24 kids playing this game, and I'll play it for time. So we'll do 3 minutes. I'll blow the whistle. I'll just yell, hey, okay, rotate. Winners move up a court, losers move down a court. and they start. They spin for serve, they go. We do this probably not once a week, maybe at least once every other week. And it is truly one of the best because it requires a continental grip. I mean, you can't volley with control and touch a lot with Eastern grip. So it really reveals, or it reveals whether these players are developing the touch and the feel that we're trying to get them to feel. And it is hilarious because the kids get so into it. And if I say winners move up, losers move down, and they're tied, the next rally wins that game. And everybody's watching that rally because we got to wait till they get done. And it's taking that volleyball game, several values that I like. Number one, I got 8 players per court. Number two, I'm teaching them how to touch the volley to each other rather than just belting it over the net every time. They have to think about it. They have to plan their shot. They have to anticipate where their partner is going to be and hit it to their partner. And it's a competitive game. And so it transitions from, say, the hit and giggle kind of game to truly a game that, as they develop their volley skills, it becomes very intense.
Okay, so which brings us to, I think, the thing that we haven't talked about is that I believe that every practice should end with a game. Just about every practice that I ever have ends with a game, and the only thing that would stop that would be if there was an injury, or if there was some kind of major disruption, or we're having a discipline issue. If we're having a discipline issue with the team, then we might skip games. Because I'm just not gonna tolerate that. But then the other thing is, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll say, all right, we're getting towards the end of the competitive phase. So we've had 2 weeks of tough matches and played all of our rivals, and now after that last match of that, then the next practice we're gonna play games all of practice. It's going to be all games. You get to vote what order we're going to play them in, right?
Sure.
The second place voted on one we start with. The first place one is the last one we play, and then we got a mix of games. And then I also let them know win or lose that last match. So you can't lose your way out of having game day. Because I think sometimes coaches make the mistake of being punitive about losing. And if the team has lost what they say is a crucial match, then they're going to respond by giving them a really tough conditioning day the next day, and that's a lot of pressure for the kids. So I let them know, win or lose, we're playing games all day tomorrow because it's the end of the competitive session. We have an active rest day, and then we're going to go back to pre-competitive to get ready for the next round of matches. So, all right. So, I feel like we've covered a lot of territory here, and so I think we can wrap up like pretty quick here. What are 2 or 3 take homes?
I think from listening to your program and contrasting it with mine, obviously there's many different ways a coach can be successful and tailor a program that they see is producing the results they want. So I'm a little different in closing here. When I end up practice, we always do a conditioning thing together, and then we always end, no matter what, no one leaves early, no one leaves practice without the rest of the team. And so when I'm done with practice, I bring everybody in, we do some blood and guts, we do some drill, some whatever movement, quickness drills, whatever, for about 5 minutes. And I'm not trying to kill them. It's just I want my players to come together as a team. And we always do a cheer at the end of practice as a team. And again, maybe it's the culture here, maybe it's just the type of kid I have, but I mean, after every practice, half dozen to a dozen kids thank me for practice. Thanks, coach. Thank you, coach. I mean, that tells me they value what we're doing, or maybe they're just polite. I don't know. But the organization that I have found works so well is that they know they are a team, they are a family, and they will end that practice as a team and as a family. Nobody leaves practice unless they have an medical thing or something. But so, I mean, to close here, I think that sort of gives listeners an understanding of here's two very distinctively different ways that you in practice and I in practice that we're both very successful at what we do. And I just feel that there's probably, as much as I feel valuable, what I do works really, really well. It may work really well because of who I am, as opposed to just the straight organization. May or may not work for another coach.
Yeah. Well, and see, okay, and I think the value of that is in some places, if you don't end with something hard, they feel disappointed.
Could be.
Right.
Yeah.
And where I'm at, I do my conditioning right before game time. So we'll have a really tough time of conditioning, and then they get a 5-minute water break or less, and then we're playing games. And the fact that we're playing games next usually means that water break's going to be less than 5 minutes.
Right.
So I like to end with something fun. They know that, and then the fact that we're going to end with something fun makes it easier for them to get through the conditioning that they're not so excited about.
Right, and what we tend to do is we'll do a game of like 21 or Russian Crush or something before that little conditioning thing. But see, I run practice where I've got challenges going on. I've got upper division players drilling on one court. I've got a 3-ring circus going on sometimes. So I have to in practice, and I tell the kids if they're in the middle of a challenge, and it's usually my lower JV, so it's not as debilitating. But I say, okay, finish the game you're in. Remember your score. You're going to pick it up tomorrow, which is, you hate to do that, but you got to in practice at some point. And so, but all in all, I love how the end of practice can be cohesive. And the other thing I wanted to mention that I know you kind of talked about, I like to have a really hard conditioning program on certain days that lead right into a drill, because I want my players to feel fatigue and see if their strokes are breaking down either in match play or drills. And I think that's a whole nother realm of my coaching is when do I also want to take my players to the limit of their, where their strokes start to break down because of conditioning or lack thereof. And so then,
absolutely.
So that's a whole nother topic altogether.
Yes. So, I think next time let's get into some of these little tricky things. Like I'm a big fan of, having them practice serves and returns before conditioning and after, because the serve is something that will break down when somebody's really tired, and just the mental preparation for, okay, it feels like the third set right now.
Correct.
So, absolutely. All right. Hey, David, great to talk to you again. And let's do this again next week.
Look forward to it.
It's going to be on YouTube shortly. But thanks again.
Thanks, Bill. We'll talk again.